Welcome to Westmoreland Community Connections, a look at issues and happenings on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. Here now is your host, Jennifer Mealy, Chief Communications Officer and Managing Director of Evangelization of the Diocese of Greensburg.
Welcome to Westmoreland Community Connections on WHJB. I'm your host, Jennifer Mealy. Happy to be here today with Karen Burns. She's the Executive Director of CASA of Westmoreland and her board president, David Reel. We thank you both so much for joining us today on Westmoreland Community Connections for such an important function. I'm going to begin with you, Karen. For people who are just joining us, can you tell them what CASA is?
Okay, CASA stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates, and we are a judicial volunteer program here in Westmoreland. We're one of 900 programs of CASA programs across the United States, and we serve the judiciary and the children who are in foster care. And so who we work with are citizen volunteers who come forward to say, I would like to serve a foster child and serve the court by providing information about the child's well-being during the time that they are in foster care and gaining the child's trust and relaying back to the court what their needs are and how they're faring and if they need anything that has emerged to be attended to. Wonderful. And can you tell me a little bit about how this got started and why this became such an important issue? Yeah. Unfortunately, there's a tough and sad reality about child abuse in society, and it's not unique to Westmoreland. And but it is a kind of like a byproduct of parents having a hard time in their life and not being necessarily able to keep their child safe. So back in 1978, a Seattle family court judge was not convinced that he was receiving the most updated information about the child's well-being the children's well-being that he was tasked as the family court judge to make decisions about for their future. And so he deputized people who were within his court community to go out and get information about, independent information about what was going on with the children in his docket. And it was very successful. And he he expanded it and he brought it forward to the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges. And it just took off like wildfire because having an independent point of view of what is going on with children in foster care helps the judge or the hearing officer to have the information to. It's an additional point of view that can square with other points of view, and it became quite refined. And there are standards by which all of the programs operate. We come under the umbrella of the National CASA Association. So, David, tell us a little bit about your involvement and how you found out about this wonderful program.
Yeah, I actually got invited to attend our leadership breakfast probably about 8 or 9 years ago. Our leadership breakfast is really an awesome event. It's at the Word of Life Church, just south of Greensburg. And it's really meant to raise awareness. And so I attended just really knowing nothing about CASA and started to learn more about the program and was really, taken by the great work that not only the staff does, but really that the CASA volunteers do. And then started to get a little more involved, started running the golf outing with some of the folks at CASA, and then joined the board a couple years ago. And then this past year has been my first year serving as board president.
Tell us about the work being done by the volunteers and how rewarding that it is to you.
Well, I want to talk really first about the CASA volunteers. So our CASA volunteers are really the heart of the program. So these are adults, oftentimes, retired, but not always. And they have to go through quite a bit of training, over 24 hours plus continuing education. And they're assigned one case, usually at a time, maybe more, but typically they're working with either one child in foster care or siblings in foster care. And they're meeting with them once a month, again, often more, reporting to the court. They're sworn in by the court, and their job is to give a voice to those kiddos. These are kids that are typically often abused, neglected. They don't really have any adults, maybe one adult or so in their life that's looking out for them. And they need somebody. And that's what the CASA does. The CASA stands there and comes to court and tells the court and children's services what they think makes most sense for this child, not the parent, not the foster parent, what makes sense for the child. So those volunteers are really at the heart of what we do. We have a very robust board. We have great committees that help fundraise and things like that. And we have really dedicated people that put a lot of time and heart and frankly, financial support into our organization. But at the end of the day, it's our CASA volunteers that really are our organization.
Now, that does take some training to be a court-appointed special advocate. Is that right, Karen?
It is. It takes altogether with, one-to-one kind of feedback on homework and actually questions that advocates would have. It takes about 30 hours. It's spread out. There's different ways that people can be trained. They can be trained online at their own pace and then have appointments for debriefings. We have and primarily during this period of time, we've had Zoom trainings. But we also have in-person trainings in a classroom setting. But it's 30 hours, and it's a program that helps advocates understand the context in which they're going to be working, the nature of child abuse, what the child protection system is, the different parties in it, the role that they play, and the role that CASAs play as the independent asset of the judiciary, that we do collaborate and share information with case parties, legal case parties. So it's a very robust training and very meaningful training. It's a lot of case studies and case studies in which CASAs have made a significant contribution to the well-being of the child. And also we bring in parties from the Children's Bureau, from the court to also explain to them the role that they'll play and how important it is. And so it's a terrific training. And then every year, as David mentioned, we ask our advocates to have an additional 10 hours of continuing ed, which gives them beyond basic training and also helps them know and recognize different aspects of child well-being so that they can really, closely observe and make possibly better informed observations, but certainly learn more about really what's at the leading edge of study of trauma, child trauma, and also how to be an education advocate to a more extensive degree. What are the legal changes that are going on in the Children's Bureau in Washington as that sets the standard for all children's bureaus across the United States. And so it's they do get a very well-rounded and continuously evolving training.
Very nice. Can you take us through, obviously remove the name of a child and to protect that child, but why don't you take us through a story, something that's happened at CASA that you're very proud of, an outcome that you'd like to talk about? Yeah,
this one really is meaningful to my experience. We had an advocate, a woman who was probably in her 40s. As David said, many people are over 50, but we do have advocates who are in their 20s, 30s, 40s. But this woman was, she was from the community, and she was assigned to a young case girl who was about I guess when she was first assigned to her, she was probably about 10 years old, and she had been abused, and she had what we call big behaviors, which are, responses to the trauma that she had experienced as a child in her her birth family home. And what happened was she was serially changing placements, and but and some people, really could not, have her in their home, and that does unfortunately happen. And so, because she needed a higher level of care, or there were different reasons, and sometimes it might be that a family is moving. And in one instance, which I'll detail, the family was having they were having a change in their life. And what happened was there was a family that she was placed with that was very, she really bonded with them, felt really positive. She was in care for several years. And what happened was they were going to move. But during the time that she was with them, she enjoyed also going to the family's faith-based organization, their church. And she was in the youth program, and she just really enjoyed every aspect of that family life that she was in. And something happened, and they needed to not be, they couldn't be foster parents anymore. I believe that there was a medical illness in the immediate family. So she floundered. She went to another home, and what happened was the CASA went with her every step of the way, every home that she had been in, and what the CASA's role was to visit with her on a monthly basis, to check in with all the service providers, including her therapist, including her caseworker, including her lawyer. And she kept very close tabs on the child and had a very strong rapport with her. Well, one day the CASA was just looking through the Tribune, saw an obituary notice caught her eye, and she realized that the name of the family was the same name of one of the foster families that she had. Like, this was probably like 2 years earlier, the one that she had really enjoyed. And so she talked to the caseworker, and there had been a really strong relationship between the child's youth group leader and the child, and that was the name that she also recognized. Not that she had recognized; it was the youth group leader's last name. And so they looked into it, and they found out that she approached them. She and the caseworker approached that family to see if they might be a placement for her. And they said they would be interested. They had always enjoyed working with her. And it was a couple who had been her youth group leader. And they, during that family experience, and she came to be in that home as a foster home. And it was actually a very good experience for the family and for her. And they went on the adoption path. And the first year I was here in 2019, she was adopted by that family, and it was on adoption day that they all celebrated, and it was very powerful, very powerful. And the family, and they had an extended family, so she had all these cousins, and she was really quite jubilant, and she had calmed down in that period of time. And the advocate was a very important part of that extended family's celebration. And so just going the distance with the child, usually the cases last for about 18 months. That's the time that the parents get to work out their problems so that they can be safely reunified. In this instance, that didn't happen. So she was going to be in care for a while. And this was probably about the third year that in between that she had been in care. But it had a very happy ending thanks to an observant and caring advocate who really kind of absorbed all the things that were important to that case child while she was in care.
Karen Burns sharing a story with us about CASA of Westmoreland, court-appointed special advocate. She's the executive director. I'm also here with board president David Reel. I'm your host, Jennifer Mealy. You're listening to Westmoreland Community Connections on WHJB. We'll be right back.
This is Westmoreland Community Connections on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. If you have a suggestion for a topic, or if your nonprofit organization would like to be featured on this program, call us during regular business hours at 724-216-1200.
Welcome back to Westmoreland Community Connections on WHJB. Today we're talking about the court-appointed special advocates of Westmoreland County. I'm here with the CASA Executive Director Karen Burns and Board President David Reel. Thank you both for joining us. You just before the break shared with us a very impactful story about how a court-appointed special advocate really went the extra mile for a child, actually seeking out potential foster parents who ended up becoming adoptive parents. What a wonderful story. David, I'd like to go to you now. Do you have any stories or just examples of that extra mile that you would like to share?
Well, this is probably from a number of years ago, and I remember hearing it when I first got involved in the organization. But I believe it was a brother, sister, or siblings who kept kind of getting moved from home to home for various reasons, from foster family to foster family. And finally, after however many moves, I can't say how many, their CASA showed up, and the children looked at the advocate and said, you found us. Wow. They were so blown away that the advocate kept going and finding out and figuring out where they were going. And these kids were so just overwhelmed by the fact that there was this adult that just cared about them and was willing to do whatever it took to stay in touch, to keep tabs on them, and to make sure that they were okay.
Oh, just brings tears to your eyes, doesn't it? Wow. Wonderful story. Karen, can you tell people at home how they can get involved, how they can donate? Where is this clearinghouse of information?
Okay, so everything about becoming a CASA advocate in terms of what the process is for, for getting more information, to coming to an information meeting about learning about CASA or hearing some videos, are on our website, which is casaofwestmoreland.org. And so the way that you would become involved is you would come to, right now we're doing these as Zoom information meetings, and we would tell you a little bit about what the role of a CASA is, so that we clarify it. But it's pretty straightforward. It's to, visit once a month with the case child and to check in and with the foster parents, the caseworker, the child's lawyer, and even be an educational advocate for the child in the school. And but anyway, we talk about that after the information meeting, which is probably about an hour or 45 minutes, depending on the length of the exploration that people are interested in knowing about. And you would fill out an application. You would provide references. You would agree that you'll undergo a background check, which is really a criminal background check, which, precious cargo, the children, we have to be very thoughtful. And so that's, and vigilant about, being able to make sure that the advocate is a safe person for the child who's very vulnerable. And so you just agree to a background check, which is a very straightforward thing. And then we do an interview. So once you submit your application at casaofwestmoreland.org, after we go through, an information meeting, then we'll have an interview with you. And that can also be by Zoom and or in person. And then you'll, it's just to get to know you better as a candidate to be an advocate. And then you go through a training, and we have continuous cohorts going through. We have 2 people finishing up right now. We graduated a class back in early November. And so we have the trainings can start, and it's when they're ready. Some people are, they're ready to do it, and they've considered it, and they're so they're anxious to get going and to be assigned. We have, people don't realize it, but we do have about 400 to 450 children in Westmoreland County that are being served by the Westmoreland County Children's Bureau as foster children in out-of-home care. And so there's always a need to have, we have about 70 advocates right now. We really need at least twice that. Our goal is to serve every child that the court believes would benefit by having a CASA. So we always have a waiting list and a need for more advocates. And so, there's hopefully there'll be a matchup between a person's, concern or willingness to step forward and say, yeah, this sounds really good to me. I would like to be a part of helping to make a child have a better future and have a stable present to help them feel that they have hope and that for their present and for their future. So the process is to go to, it can start with calling us. It can start with, and our number is 724-850-6874. That's 724-850-6874. And we can start with a conversation as well.
Wonderful. David, there is a fundraising component to volunteerism as well. If someone can't necessarily commit to becoming a court-appointed special advocate, they could absolutely help when it comes to raising funds, I would imagine.
Absolutely. So we have 3 different events throughout the year to raise awareness and to raise funds. So first, I mentioned earlier our leadership breakfast, which will be this April at the Word of Life Church. It's really a wonderful event to gather people from the community to celebrate the great work that our CASAs do. We also recognize youth in the community. We hand out an award for volunteerism. It's really a wonderful event that obviously, we sell tickets. There's some sponsorships available. At the end of August, we have a golf outing out at Latrobe Country Club that we've had great participation in, great support from the community for. And then finally, we have an annual gala, typically either the end of October, early November, that we really bring everyone together and celebrate the great work we've done and raise money to help support our staff, support the ability to have these CASA volunteers. And kind of running throughout all of the events is our Powerful Voice Society, which we launched about 2 years ago. And the idea of the Powerful Voice Society is to give a voice to every child in the court system. And it costs our organization about $1,500 a year to provide an advocate to one child. So it's about $1,500 to support one child in foster care. And so our Powerful Voice Society is really community leaders who've stepped up and have said they want to provide services for at least one child, sometimes more. And so that's a very important component of our organization.
Oh, so wonderful. I mean, I can absolutely see why you would want to be involved in this. I've been to several of your galas and they're fabulous, and the stories that are shared there are wonderful. And I think everyone there genuinely has their hearts in the right places and probably can see how fortunate we are as adults to have stable homes, and wondering what it would be like for a child to go through that. So, Karen, I have to ask, how did you land in this role? What is your background and how did you take over this organization?
Well, it's a really interesting story. I was the executive director of the CASA program in Newark, New Jersey, which is it's a challenged city. It's poor in metropolitan New York, New Jersey. And so they had a very large, it was I started there during the period of time that crack cocaine was really an issue. And that really was generating a number of foster children who had been neglected. I mean, most children in foster care, are victims of severe neglect, but about 20% are also abused. But I happened to, meet a person, had an interview, and became the executive director there. And I served in that role for 16 years. And My husband took a job out here in Pittsburgh. That was something that he wanted to pursue. And, it was one of those family, life decisions that, you make a change because it's the right thing for your family. And so I came out here. And I was determined that I was going to, find a role in managing a nonprofit. I really, I also had worked with immigrants. And so I was looking for that kind of a community service management, role, because I really do love the work. And I happened to see that Westmoreland County, CASA, was actually looking for an executive director.
That's stunning, right? I mean, it's stunning.
It was.
What you did, yes.
It was. And so I interviewed, and I was really, I've been with the program now for a little bit more than 2.5 years. And it's very similar. I mean, the problems are different in that they're similar. I mean, the fact that child abuse exists everywhere in human society, primarily neglect, it does happen. And there are reasons for that intergenerationally, but also our biggest problem is, our substance abuse issues here. But anyway, there's work, and the umbrella of the National CASA Association, the standards are the same. The program had been established in 2007. We had a really wonderful executive director for many years, Mandy Zalek, who is now runs the Community Action, Westmoreland Community Action. And she had the program had been, it was a healthy program. So it was a matter of, really kind of like adding, kind of managing the flow, the recruitment of new advocates, which is really a very important part of the work, and then the supervision and training of them. So it's been an honor to be able to continue that work. It's an amazing honor.
Serendipitous, I have to say, your background and coming here with your husband and then finding almost the exact job that you were doing in another location. And I'm sure, David, you feel blessed to have Karen as part of the team, and certainly you as part of the team as well. Great board of directors, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. We're very fortunate to have really a nice collection of folks on our board from different backgrounds, both some from the family court, other legal backgrounds, business backgrounds, development. It's a great group of folks who really works together really well in helping Karen. And our job is to do everything we can to support Karen and the staff. And we're very fortunate to have Karen here. The challenges that the organization faces, meaning, our everyday challenges are somewhat unique. They're not something that we as a board all have a ton of experience with, one-on-one. I'm not a behavioral health expert, but Karen really with her wealth of expertise, with the staff she has put in place, has done a wonderful job. And I feel very excited about where we are as an organization, our ability to really grow and continue to help more kiddos here in Westmoreland County and achieve that goal. I really want that every kid who needs an advocate can have an advocate. It's not the case today, as Karen alluded to earlier. We don't have the volunteers, we don't have the funding yet, but we're going to get there, and we have the people to do it.
Today's guests are from CASA of Westmoreland. Board President David Reel is with us, and Executive Director Karen Burns. Our time is up, but I really appreciate you both being on the show today. CASA of Westmoreland Court appointed special advocates. You've been so wonderful. Congratulations on all the great work, and I hope that this show continues to promote and publicize what you're doing and attracts more volunteers to your organization.
Thank you, Jennifer.
You're listening to Westmoreland Community Connections on WHJB. I'm your host, Jennifer Mealy.
This has been Westmoreland Community Connections, a look at issues and happenings in and around Westmoreland County. Join us again next week on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB.